Greetings and felicitations.
Hip, hip, hurrah, tally-ho.
Hey, Cutie Pie.
Hey, Puddin'.
So what are we going to talk about today for Star Trek Discovery Initial Watch?
Okay, well, the first episode for Season 3 was called That Hope Is You, Part 1. And we don't know where the Part 1 comes from because the next episode is not That Hope Is You, Part 2. And so far, according to what's on Wikipedia, there are no future episodes that call themselves Part 2 of this episode. So maybe at some point we'll find out why they said Part 1.
Okay. So it was aired on
October 15th.
Right after, week after, Lower Decks ended, which I think is good. There's no gap. We could watch Star Trek and another Star Trek and another Star Trek. I don't like the overlapping like it was in the 90s. I prefer it to be end one, start another. What do you think about that format?
I really didn't mind it in the 80s or the 90s, but I know what you mean. It's just, this way it's easier to keep it straight in your head. And if you're, like back then, I was trying to memorize all the titles. It was harder back then and I finally just gave up. Mm-hmm. And now, and I guess I'm still not into it now because I'm older. I'm not even trying to memorize, but it's still, it'll be easier when you're trying to take it in and remember it all. If they just show one show at a time, you're just going through one show through the season and then the next show and do the season of that show. It is easier. It's easier to keep up with.
Now, we both agreed that the last episode of Season 1 of Lower Decks was fantastic.
It was. It got better as it went on because
I'd say it was the best episode of the whole series.
Yeah, we were just so lukewarm when or even hated it when it first started, but it got better as it went on. Mm-hmm. So, getting to this episode of Discovery.
Black alert. Black alert.
We are in the third year of Discovery.
Each season of it has been so different.
Okay. So, coming off that high of Lower Decks, what did you think about Discovery Season 3 opener?
Well, I mean, of course you don't expect this to be anything like Lower Decks. But for this episode of Discovery, I thought it was good, but not great. So for Discovery, now we know how the last season ended, where they said they were going to the future. Mm-hmm. So here in this episode, we see Michael Burnham. She comes out in the future. She comes out in about to crash into another ship, and there's all this kind of wreckage around her, and then she finally crashes on a planet. I don't know how she didn't burn up in the atmosphere. Sci-fi shows always talk about there's danger of burning up in the atmosphere when you're about to crash into a planet. But anyway, she had her force field on her suit. So I mean, we need to kind of go over the general things that they said in this. So in this future, the Federation is no more. It collapsed because of something called the burn, mm-hmm. which they said was dilithium crystals exploded. And we're supposed to think it was like all the dilithium crystals, or at least most of them, all over the galaxy exploded at once. And there are a few left. You can see some in this episode, but it's more like fragments. And so one thing I liked was about the new character Book. He was trying to rescue a transworm, mm-hmm. and we find out that they're an endangered species, and they mention how without the Federation, there's no government entity to enforce the Endangered Species Act. What I liked hearing there was that the Federation was a force for good. I mean, because it wasn't just a military organization. It wasn't just Starfleet. Starfleet was part of the Federation, mm-hmm. but Starfleet and the Federation were always a force of good, and they did things like enforcing the Endangered Species Act. In other words, they didn't just go to war all the time. Mm-hmm. They weren't just about protecting their territory and fighting the Klingons. They actually
made a difference in the planets that were involved.
Made a difference
in the Federation. Sure.
They helped people. They helped mm-hmm. other, sentient species, other living beings. They stood up for them. They protected them.
I think this is quite possibly the worst episode of Discovery ever.
I know you think that.
I did not like it at all. And I'm not a negative person. If I don't like it, I don't talk about it. I don't have much to say about this show. I don't get it. I just don't get it. 3 years in, and it's still not resonating with me. But I'm not the demographic they're looking for. I don't even know who the demographic is that they're looking for, but it's just not working for me. I watch it because it's Star Trek. I'll watch everything once and then make a balanced judgment on that.
The thing is, at least you watched it and said you didn't like it, because there are some people who just refuse to watch it.
That's silly.
And they'll say it's garbage without having seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very much an attitude, and it's just something that isn't really called for. I mean,
of course
I would like to give it a chance. I mean, I know some people, like you read about it and you might say, well, that's not interesting to me. But even then, some things that I didn't think I would be interested in, I did turn out to be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But other good things about this, I mean, I did like the character of Book, the guy that Burnham almost crashed into, but then and then they had this fist fight, and then they became friends. But he was a good character. I mean,
he reminds me of a Han Solo.
Yeah,
right? He's a scoundrel, and then they find out he has a heart of gold.
Yeah, he's like what they called a courier, which is supposed to be someone who just takes things from one place to another. But he said, well, the other people said he stole the cargo from them. Mm-hmm. So see, we don't know if this guy is a good guy or a bad guy at first. Did he steal from them? But then we find out it was actually, he was trying to free this sentient being, the transworm, whom he named Molly, which was cute. And
it's a transworm because it puts you in a trance.
Yes. And that was funny
Kinda
too.
neat.
I mean, yeah, close your eyes or it'll put you in a trance and then eat you.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now let's talk about the other guy that right at the beginning of the episode, the guy who woke up to the music.
Oh yes, that was kind of interesting. The bed turning into matter and then collapsing.
Programmable matter is what it was called. Yeah, everything. But didn't it remind you of Thanos? Like it was turning to dust.
Yes.
Like everything just turned to dust, but it would sort of disintegrate. But then you would know that it could reform itself later. It does this at the person's will.
Mm-hmm. So it was very much futuristic sci-fi. It didn't feel Star Trek at all because it's so far into the future. So it's going to be an adjustment working the Star Trek in universe into something that's so different than what we're used to seeing on the screen for Trek. Because we watch a lot of science fiction. And so we're seeing these developments of modern technology and other sci-fi, so it's going to be very unique seeing this in Star Trek.
And that's what I'm looking forward to. That's why like we liked the idea that they were going so far into the future. Now, I mean, having the Federation not exist anymore in the future, but that's something new for Star Trek, and they can make it work because Michael, I mean, of course, is still going to hold up Starfleet ideals. And she went there to keep control from killing all sentient life. So, I mean, that was the big epic Star Trek thing, the epic good guy that she was.
And this future that we're seeing reminds us very much so of Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda series.
It was, because Andromeda was there was something called the Commonwealth that ruled the galaxy, and they had peace for 1,000 years, and then there were things that caused the Commonwealth to crumble. So Andromeda picks up right where when they're just trying to rebuild the galaxy again and rebuild their good society, their humble moral society from what used to be the Commonwealth.
Exactly. So we see elements of Andromeda and the guy sitting at the desk waiting for Starfleet to arrive or Federation to arrive. I only watched it once. I know a lot of people are rewatching it multiple times. I mean, I can't sit through this another time. So I know I'm probably missing some of the details, but that reminded me of Battlestar Galactica. The BSG reboot, that's exactly how it started.
And that's interesting. It took elements from other shows, and of course it's been criticized for that, like, well, can't they come up with anything new? But there are so many ideas out there, it's hard for something to be completely original.
Sure. Yeah, it's understandable. And some of the writers in the writer's room, half of them aren't sci-fi writers. They write for dramas, soap operas, things like that. So to them, it's new ideas. to those of us that watch a lot of sci-fi and read a lot of sci-fi, you're going to see some overlaps of concepts. Didn't dislike it or like it really, just reminiscent of something that we've already seen.
So the guy, Aditya Sahil, he was the one that was supposedly the last person of the Federation, still waiting. He was waiting there, hoping that something will come back from the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
And so Michael shows up, and the thing is, so everybody knew that this guy Sahil was there, or at least Book knew he was there, because Book is the one that took Michael to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do like the idea that someone is there. This guy Sahil, he knows that, well, the Federation was something great because his father had been part of it. He said his father knew about it. His father told him. So, and he was, monitoring for ships, and so he knew about certain Starfleet ships that were still out there, but he couldn't find Discovery, but the sensors only worked over a small distance in space. But I like the idea that someone was still there. Someone had that much hope, that much faith, that much loyalty to sit there and wait. And you can see him, he had such a boring life. He did the same thing day after day. I mean, who can do that? Waking up at the same time every day and just gets up and sits there just scanning, I suppose, looking for things. And
yeah.
And is it kind of like us, like we were waiting for Star Trek to come back on TV so many years?
Well, I remember one part in the show that this backs it up a little bit. When Michael Burnham took off her spacesuit, it didn't just fall on the ground, it actually stood erect.
Yes.
And you said, it's like the Iron Man suit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, another thing they stole from something else. Yeah, because it's so popular. And I guess, sometimes maybe someone thought it was their own idea and didn't even realize they weren't even thinking about Iron Man. But
you're seeing elements,
like it.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of elements of a mishmash of different concepts put together. I'm still struggling with everything being cool and blue tones in this show. Why are they obsessed with the color blue? We're not on Andor. Everything does not have to be blue.
They wanted to give it a unique look. That's just what I'm thinking. I mean, because now you can look at a TV screen, and if it's got that blue hue, it makes you think Star Trek because Discovery has done it enough now.
You think that's it?
I mean, yes, a way to give it its own look. So
okay.
Also we had Cosmo, the guy that was chasing Book. He was played by the same actor that played Linus on the previous season of Discovery. So Linus was a different alien. He was a Saurian. Now on this episode, Cosmo is a Betelgeusian.
Throwback from the motion picture.
Yeah, but both aliens were in the motion picture, even though the makeup was different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand the character of Michael. The entire time previously, she was stoic. She was not a happy person. I mean, she's always crying, cry all the time. And this time she's laughing, she's crying, she has all these emotions.
She goes through a lot of emotions.
What is the deal with this? I mean, so she's putting aside her Vulcan upbringing. For the longest time, she couldn't even order breakfast like a normal human. She said it in a Vulcan tone. Now all of a sudden, every emotion's coming to the fore. I just don't, the character doesn't resonate with me. And so if they're making a whole show based around her, I don't get it.
They've gone through a lot. I mean, she's gone through a lot on the show. So much has happened to her. And I think after dealing with her brother Spock, and even with her father, she has embraced more of her emotions. I mean, she really did that even back after working with Giorgio for so long. I mean, because you know how very unemotional she was in that flashback scene when she first met Giorgio.
Exactly.
She was very Vulcan-like there, more than a Vulcan really, and then
absolutely.
And then later she has been more human, and in this one, of course, she has that big laugh right at the beginning when she asked the computer, "Are there any life forms?" and it said multiple life forms, And then she just had that big laugh.
And she has a beautiful smile.
Very, very triumphant.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
But now that was because what they said in the previous season. The reason they went to the future is because Control was going to try to destroy all sentient life.
Yes.
So now she finds out that her mission has succeeded because Control did not destroy all the life. So I mean, yeah, that would be, of course that would make her ecstatic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like seeing one of Morn's species.
Yes.
Anytime we see
Lorien.
What is
Lorien.
it? Lorien?
Yes.
Yes. Like seeing that. Anytime I see Andorians, I'm always excited. Orions, absolutely. Love the old school aliens.
So the Orions and Andorians working together in this, or at least two of them, that was interesting. And so we're seeing familiar aliens, which is good. And
so we know that they're making
some new ones. Yeah.
That's a great thing.
And so they survived, or at least, I mean, the people survived. The civilizations, we still don't know as much yet. Now also that, you know what they said, that time travel has been outlawed because of the temporal wars.
Excellent reference to Enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, temporal war goes all the way back to Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And,
now I'm of the belief that this is a separate timeline, just like the Kelvinverse is a separate timeline.
Separate from Enterprise.
Separate from, the Prime timeline.
Yes, okay.
And so I think it's interesting that they're using verbiage of the temporal war. I wonder if they're finally going to make it official that yes, this is a deviant timeline.
I don't think they will. I think the producers
you
are
think
still,
they're going
to insist that this is prime timeline, just like they always have.
Whether it makes sense or not.
Yeah, exactly. But saying that, so I think they wanted to say that time travel was outlawed because they probably the writers want us to know for sure that Michael's not going to try to go back in time and undo the Great Burn. I mean, I kind of think that's the reason they threw that line in, just to make sure they're not going to solve the problem anymore with time travel, because they've done enough with time travel. Star Trek uses that a lot, and I would rather they just move forward with what's the storyline that's set in front of us right now.
100%, I agree.
And part of this was filmed in Iceland. Wasn't it beautiful?
Yes.
That was wonderful. Yeah, I mean,
a unique terrain.
Nice that they could go on location. So much of this show has happened on the ship and in space. And even when they land on a planet, it was like the planet where they found Burnham's mother, where all it was a base that was on a planet, so they were still inside a building. So most of Discovery has been that way, on ships in space. And, except for things like Saru's planet, very few planet episodes.
That's true. And Iceland is beautiful, but Greenland is cold. It's the reverse of their names.
Ah.
Right?
Okay.
So
this one had the nice landscape and everything.
Which is so frustrating that they didn't use the whole color spectrum. Again, we're just drowned out in cool colors. I just think it's sad.
There's still a whole season ahead of us, though. This was just one episode.
You think it might change?
Yeah, I do. I think they're leaving that planet, aren't they? They didn't seem like they were going to stay there.
I'm over the blue tint on everything.
And as everyone says, this was probably the first episode that didn't have any prominent Caucasians.
I don't think there are any white people in it.
I mean, except for the white people in alien makeup.
I don't count that.
But they were aliens,
Orions
right?
as white. I count them as green.
Exactly.
Yes. Or blue, if you look at the animated series. Right?
Yes.
They change in hues just like humans and Andorians do. Sure.
And as you said, it would be, it's realistic because in essence the white race is dying out.
Oh, we're totally dying out. We're not having kids at the rate of other people. Yeah.
So it's an interesting thought.
In sci-fi going forward, it does reflect our civilization now. Totally. So it makes sense.
It was a very diverse culture on that planet.
Mm-hmm.
And even in space, even Sahil, the guy looking for the Federation. So it was a very interesting perspective.
It was.
Oh, and how the Federation flag has changed. You notice that?
I like the clean look.
Yeah, basically it was just not as many stars, and the laurel around it was a little different.
It was.
But it was, similar, but it was still different.
But it was like a streamlined look. The original one was created in 1987, Michael Okuda.
Yes.
And he said he made it random. Some people tried to say, well, the stars mean humans, Vulcans, and Klingons, and he clarified that a long time ago. I made it up, designed to look good, I based it on the United Nations, and just deviated from the United Nations. So those stars really don't mean anything, because that was created before Enterprise established the 4 founding
Right, it
races.
wasn't about the 4 founding races,
Not
but
at
there
all.
was something that was published that said it might be about the 3 ideals of the Federation, which was...
That's what he's presenting now.
Yeah, yes.
Absolutely. I like the new design, the refreshed design. And again, that's based on reality. Look at countries. Their flags change over the centuries. So...
And it may change again on this show.
Of course. Yep. Yeah, so that was a good point.
So, okay, and do we know what caused the Great Burn? I mean, no, but there's still some theories, but that is something, and they made it look like in the previews that they are going to research it. Like Burnham wants to find out what caused it, because without it, there's no warp drive, at least not, or not over great distances like they could go before. That's the reason Starfleet and the Federation collapsed.
I imagine just like any other source of fuel. If we were to lose fossil fuels now, it would shut the world down for a little bit, but everyone would scramble and find something else.
We're
That's
trying to find
what's
alternatives now with
Yes.
the electric car, things like that, but it's still not a major thing. It hasn't caught on. It has not become as big and as convenient as using regular gasoline.
I may continue watching it, see what happens. The good thing is they finally, 3 years in, decided to release Star Trek Discovery dolls by Mego. We get 2 dolls. After 2 full seasons, we get 2 dolls out of this.
Michael Burnham and Saru.
That's it.
And, at least that's something. Yeah, so they're starting out with 2. I guess they're going to see how well those sell,
Yes.
and then maybe they'll come up with some others.
Exactly.
Why not release the whole crew?
I'm home all day. I'll buy everything.
The original
Exactly.
bridge crew of Discovery, they could release that.
Of course. But this episode, it was the Mikey Spock show. That was it pretty much.
She was the only main character on it. It was all about Michael. Yes.
Okay, Season 3, Episode 2, Far From Home, released October 22nd, 2020. Now, what did you think about this episode?
This one, Far From Home, I did not like it as much as the first episode of the season.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing to me.
Why? What did you
I
think?
think they were equally garbage.
Okay.
This was Firefly, essentially. That's what it reminded me of.
Okay.
Had that cowboy feel. We're in a saloon. The guy's walking in. He has his spurs jingling. So the Discovery finally, show's called Discovery, but we didn't see Discovery in the last episode. Finally, we see members of the Discovery, but their ship is damaged. Crash lands on a strange planet, ice, and they have to repair the ship.
Yeah, so Discovery comes... Okay, so now we see Discovery. I really think this episode could have been combined with the first one. They could.
I totally believe that. Yes.
Yeah, like 30 minutes from this one and 30 minutes from the previous one.
Because
the
way it caps at the end pulls everything together.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I don't like
But it
about
takes place. Sorry to interrupt, but this takes place a year after.
Well, you don't know that until the end of the episode.
Yeah, till the end of the episode. So I guess that's why they decided to put it into 2 parts.
Yeah, even though
now that we're talking now, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
Even though you could infer that when you're watching.
Well, you can say that when
Yes.
halfway through the episode and then the words on the screen appear and it says 1 year later.
I
shows
can see
do that.
Sure.
But, I think they could have combined them because this one was a little too slow for me and I'm really waiting to see what they're going to find out about this new time period. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, this episode didn't really reveal anything new. I mean, here, like Saru, someone had to tell them about the Great Burn, but we already knew about it. The audience, we already found everything out on the previous episode as far as what they know. And so there was nothing new revealed in this one, just that now we get to see Discovery.
And a major frustration because We read the novels, we read the comic books. With Picard, we got both. We got a prequel novel, prequel comics. With other Discovery seasons, they were releasing material to read along with the show to flesh it out more. This, we got nothing.
Plus, Picard had the Short Treks episode. And this one
we have
have
zero
that.
from this.
I mean, they released
as much
the trailers.
as I complain about it,
the trailers.
I'll buy it. If you make it, I'll buy it. And that's part of my frustration is I'm just walking into it blind because I like the extra information.
So they did release trailers for this one, but it's not the same. I mean, that was their marketing, but they weren't, trying to sell something. They didn't have any tie-in stuff, but they probably will. It'll just be later. So the banter between Reno and Stamets, it was pretty good.
Oh, I'm so
like
sick
how,
of her. I am so sick of her.
I like her. I think Reno is very witty, and I think she cares more than she lets on.
But in real life, though, when you have people that are sarcastic constantly, no one likes them at work.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, everybody
in real life,
everybody hates a sarcastic person, and pretty much someone says, like, you better lay off. You're going to get punched in the nose. I mean, that's real world. It's like, I can't take too much sarcasm.
Okay.
And she doesn't quit with it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, in the
So
real
I guess
world,
that's more
we
of
don't
a
like
personality thing, right?
In the real world, we don't like villains either. But I mean, on TV, you do. I mean,
you love Khan. That is true.
So Reno. Now, when she was picking at the guy that was cleaning up inside the spore field, the chamber, I mean, I don't know if that was like was she really serious that she didn't like him that much or what? You get the impression that she doesn't like him because he's a janitor, but I think she
comes across as a mean-spirited person.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like her.
Well, I mean, I think the ship probably doesn't have anyone who's just a janitor, but he was probably like the lower decks people. On lower decks, the people had to do these jobs like cleaning up things. But yeah, she was a little rough to him there. Her banter with the other people, I thought, was better.
Okay.
And actually, I didn't really like the way Georgiou was used in this episode.
I think this was her weakest episode, and usually I'm excited when she's on.
I mean, she wanted to find Burnham, and I can understand wanting to look for Michael, but the thing is, she wanted to make that a priority, and Saru said it was more a priority to make sure the crew is safe and find out where they are. And I understood Saru's point of view. And from watching this, I was thinking Georgiou just looks like she's going to be the Dr. Smith of Discovery.
I hate it if they're doing that.
Where she's just the one who's always opposed to the one who doesn't belong there, that's opposed to them,
to tag along,
and is a danger to them.
Yes.
I mean, that's what she could be on this. That's not a good use of her character.
No, not at all. I prefer to pull back on her and let her cut loose once we have the Section 31 show. Well, that brings Section 31 is going to bring a very unique fan base into Star Trek if they do it right. It's going to bring in people who like espionage shows and military shows like 24, Alias. Speaking of which, what is the demographic that this show is looking for? I don't get it, because some people say, oh, if you don't like this, it's because you're the old Trek. You only like the old Trek. No. I don't think that this show is competing with past Trek. I think this show is competing with The Mandalorian, The Boys, Watchmen, Stranger Things. These are all shows that we love.
And this show looks nothing like them.
And so, and those shows are for mature sci-fi fan audiences. They even came out and said, Mandalorian, we're going to make this for the middle-aged crowd. We're going to throw in so many references to obscure 70s and 80s Star Wars cultural items that it's going to draw in the whole family. What is the demographic for Discovery? I don't get it. It's a little bit adult, but not too adult like The Boys.
I think it is adult. It's just not trying to go that way over the edge like the way, like the Watchmen and The Boys. But I think it is trying to be mature. It does have the violence. What I want is the good stories, because you still have to be a grown-up to understand these intelligent
that's what
stories.
Watchmen is incredible stories. Or Downton Abbey, you go back over the years. Game of Thrones, it's the dialogue, it's the plot lines. I'm just not getting that out of this. I think it's shifting all the time. Every season, it's a big shift. It's like they're trying to figure it out. Okay, did this work? Okay, this didn't work. Let's shift to something different. Did this work? No, this didn't work. Let's shift to something different. And so we're second show into the third season, and even you're saying this is falling apart for you.
No, I mean, I'm still thinking it has a chance. I'm saying it's only the second episode. You're acting like it's already like 10 episodes in. I mean,
but most shows by the second or third season, if you're not firing on all cylinders, you're gone.
Yeah, but this show, we already know that there's already going to be a fourth season too. And the thing is, for Discovery, they have changed it every season. It's like it's completely different. Like, you don't even have to watch the previous 2 seasons. Every season is new for Discovery. So it keeps changing, and that could be a good thing. I mean, you might look at it like, well, they just don't know what they're doing. Like with every season, they're like, let's forget what we just did. Let's try to start over. They could be thinking that way.
Is that the impression you're getting?
Well, no. I mean, this did pick up. Like, last season was ending where they knew they were going to do this. And I think it was a good idea. I mean, going to the future is what they should have done to begin
Absolutely.
with. That's what we both said.
They should have started something similar to this. Yes.
Yes. So it still could be good. I mean, yeah, because at the end of this one, I was thinking, okay, maybe now we'll get to an actual to whatever the long story arc is going to be in the next episode.
Yeah, I was halfway falling asleep during this episode.
And another thought I had about this one is that because at the very beginning, when Saru said we still have to hold up our ideals, it reminded me of Voyager. I mean, I think this show is almost going in the direction of Voyager, because
I never thought about that.
Because Voyager was far from home, could not depend on Starfleet for backup, and
You're right.
No reinforcements, no friends were around. They would have to make new friends and allies, and that's pretty much where Discovery is now.
Excellent observation. That is true.
So, and Discovery was really,
for
Star Trek shows, it was mediocre as far as the success. I mean,
totally.
not as much, because it wasn't as successful as Next Generation.
No, not at all. And mainstream success, it's still, people don't even know it's out there.
That's right. Yeah. So
the average person who still goes to work, people don't talk about it. People talk about a bunch of other shows that we already mentioned, but.
Well, and again, the problem of being on CBS All Access. I mean, because the only reason people pay for that is to watch Discovery, to watch Star Trek, and that's still a very niche audience.
Yes. So that's part of that's excellent observation with that, though. But we're getting more characters from the Discovery. You said that this is like Voyager. Voyager had Neelix. Discovery has Tilly. I mean, it's just...
no,
oh my
you
God,
want to say that, come on.
Oh, they're just
Neelix
so annoying.
was the character that Voyager picked up. I mean, Tilly is
annoying.
a part of Discovery's
I'm
crew.
Annoying.
Okay.
The person you just put this person out of the airlock. I am just so sick of her. Terrible. But again, this show, it's called Discovery. You think it's an ensemble cast, but it's not. It's all about Michael Burnham. Picard, I'd be happy if the whole show was nothing but Patrick Stewart getting up in the morning, having a cup of tea, talking. But guess what? Picard turned into an ensemble cast. It's weird how it flipped around like that.
Yeah, Picard had, I mean, it dealt a lot with some of the other characters.
Mm-hmm.
And then now when you're looking at Discovery, well, I mean, Discovery last season, it did have more about Spock and about Pike. I mean, it was an ensemble cast
It's still
theory.
The Mikey Spock show.
I mean, yeah. In the end, it still turned out to be about Michael, but it still wasn't all about her.
Mm-hmm.
And this season, it looks like we're going to see more of Book. We don't really know if we're going to see more of that Federation guy, but hopefully we will.
Mm-hmm.
He just looks so timid and just.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you wonder how good a character he's going to make if they keep bringing him back.
I'm telling you what, now that we're just walking around the house all the time, we're not out and about as much, I'm gaining so much weight. I don't know how this guy that just gets up in the morning, has his teeth brushed for him, sits at the desk, and he's as trim as he is.
Maybe
so he's probably got the transporter,
right?
He eats his cereal in the morning, goes, boop, it transports out.
Okay, whatever. I mean,
all the fat cells he transports out.
Yeah, but in his time, maybe there's not much fat in the food, and maybe he does exercise. We just don't see it. But I mean, I did want to say about Tilly in this episode. She was still pretty good. I mean, Saru took her along. She didn't have much self-confidence, which is just like her. But she still, she still managed to hold up and to go along with, to help the team with what was going on when they met the guys in the abandoned bar. I think Tilly did a pretty good job in that, and like Saru said, she makes a good first impression. That's why he wanted to take her.
I disagree with him, but okay.
And since we're still talking about the Great Burn and not using warp, I mean, there have been other cultures on Star Trek that did not use dilithium crystals for their travel, for their faster than light travel. Yeah, so they haven't mentioned what about, because not everybody used dilithium crystals.
Correct.
So it seems like there could have been another race that took over the galaxy if Starfleet had to go under, even though they were developing other things like slipstream and transwarp that, made something else they were probably working on. And now that Discovery has the spore drive, if they could get, because they don't know any other way to use it except having Stamets use it, but if they could, and Stamets is injured still, but if they can get him back up to speed, and they might have to ask him to use the spore drive again, and that may be the only way that that anybody's able to go to warp speed,
and
faster than light.
I like the character of Hugh.
Hugh Culber.
Yes.
Not Hugh Borg. I'm just...
No.
Okay.
and their relationship.
Yeah. Stamets and Culber, they're great together. And I was so glad when they brought Culber back.
Absolutely.
And so now they're... at least, so Culber is finally coming back around to where he loves Stamets. They finally, he fell back in love during the second season, so that's great. And it's great that they're a couple again.
I'm glad that relationship is mending and healing, and he's a good nurturer for Stamets. That's his personality.
They were good
that's
together.
His profession number one. That's his personality number two.
Yes. And so what about Detmer? Something was going on with her in this episode. I really think it was just like a head injury that she just needs to, she should see the doctor about it. She hasn't even tried to go to sick bay, but yeah, there's something going on with her, and there's been some speculation, that maybe she does have a bit of control inside her head, but I hope not. I hope they're finished with the control story.
Yeah, I think they need to move beyond it.
Yeah.
Yep. But it'll be curious to see what happens. Episode number 3, People of Earth. It reunites Burnham and the USS Discovery crew together because they were separated. And so it took 3 episodes to get to this point. What'd you think about that?
I thought that was okay. We got to see the episode where Burnham found herself in the 32nd century, and then the next episode was when Discovery showed up and had their adventure before Burnham showed up to see that they were there. Mm-hmm. So that was fine. Yeah. So now we got to see them together. And
they're going back to Earth. They're really shocked at how different Earth is and what's going on.
Earth has become isolationist and paranoid, but it's pretty much like what they've seen of the whole galaxy at this time, because no one can travel anymore, and they must be like they're afraid of raiders coming to steal their dilithium.
Of course, if I was on Earth at that time and all that nonsense was going on, I'd want a shield around Earth too. The shield itself, didn't it look like the shield in Rogue One?
It did, didn't it?
Very much like that.
What I like about this episode was the Raiders, and you had the guy, they called him Wynn, and he was some type of alien, but then they find out he's actually human.
I love that. I thought it was great.
Yeah, this was one of the better episodes this season.
It really was.
Yeah.
I was super depressed at the first 2 episodes. I thought they were lousy. And this one said, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel. This is pretty good.
And everybody going to that tree at Starfleet Academy at the end.
Fantastic.
That was cool too, yes. Adira?
I liked her. I thought it was unique. She was trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, in this episode, and she seemed very harsh in this one because she was, doing her job, basically.
Yes.
So, but later we find out more about her.
But we're having still issues with
the symbiont, which we find out that she's carrying a symbiont, even though she's human. And there is a precedent for that. Riker was a human who had a symbiont for a short time.
Totally made sense. So for the haters that say, this is impossible, well, guess what? Next Generation established that it is possible. And you have to suspend disbelief because it really doesn't make sense for human anatomy to do something like this. But Next Generation already established that, so we're rolling with it.
On Next Gen, they said that he couldn't really keep it for very long, though.
Yes.
But you have to think in this time period, where they have more technology, that Adira was able to have this symbiont for probably the rest of her life.
Makes sense.
I just wanted to talk about the season in general and the characters.
Absolutely, yes. So going forward, we have episodes entitled Forget Me Not, Die Trying, Scavengers, Unification 3, The Sanctuary, Terra Firma Part 1 and 2, Su'Kal, There Is a Tide, and That Hope Is You Part 2 wraps it up. So what'd you think about the season? Because it was bookend titles.
Yeah, That Hope Is You Part 1 at the beginning. And the thing is, you can always look up the names of future episodes on Wikipedia, but they held off on listing the last name, however they were releasing it. No one really knew the title of the last episode for a while.
People thought it was an error, correct?
Yeah, or that they were stupid, but I knew there had to be some kind of reason to it. To just say That Hope Is You Part 1 and not have a Part 2. But anyway, yeah, so it turned out to be the last episode of the season. Now what I think is Season 3, I liked it. I liked some parts of it, but I don't think it was as good as Seasons 1 and 2.
Totally agree. I think this season is the weakest out of all 3.
But you didn't really like it at all.
I mean, there was a point where I just said, I hate this show. It's drag. Here we go again with, what's the burn? What's the burn? What's the burn? What's the burn? Every week, what's the burn? I'm like, I don't even care at this point.
You felt like they dragged it out too much.
Way too much. This is the first time in history that we're watching Star Trek and Star Wars new content back to back. That's never happened before. Let me tell you something. Mandalorian got better with every episode. Every episode of Mandalorian, as soon as it ended on a cliffhanger ending, you're going, another great one. Can't wait till next week. This one, I was like, I just don't care at this point. And I'm sick of Mikey Burnham. Crybaby and all this stuff. I'm just so sick of her.
See, I still like her, even though, they used her too much. Now the thing is, you have to think in second season. For the whole show, she has always been the star. She was always supposed to be the star. But I mean, if you look at last season, where the Red Angel turned out to be her mother, and it had her brother Spock actually be a character in it. And so everything's still centered around Burnham, but I still think it seemed more natural that season. Plus they had Pike, and some of it was about him as well. And then this season, it almost seemed forced that so many episodes were about her, and they put her in even when it was about Adira going back to the Trill home world.
Exactly. If it's an Adira episode, which I love the Trill episodes.
Well, even on Deep Space Nine, they had a ritual where Dax could talk to all her previous hosts, and they did it by her host actually taking over other people's bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And Jadzia actually chose the people that were her friends that she wanted to do this. And so Adira being able to talk, so it's been done before. But it was still good.
But the way that this looked, the visual connections with the strings and everything,
I
liked that. I liked it a lot.
They had new special effects with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was cool. As far as Adira as a character, and one thing I liked was how she helped Stamets. The thing is, I think Adira kind of took the place of Tilly. Tilly had always been more like Stamets' assistant, but now in this season, so Tilly's going off and doing other things, which we'll talk about. So Adira is there now with Stamets, helping him decrypt the code that they're getting from that ship that's in the nebula, and helping even finding that nebula in the first place, and so forth. All the things she helped him with. She proved very capable that she could do these things, and that she was an asset to the ship.
Yeah.
And as far as having her be transgender, but we know that the actress that plays the part is non-binary.
But I think actually they for a Trill makes way more sense.
Okay. Yes.
Because they are multiple personalities, and that was never addressed on Deep Space Nine. Do you remember even the Deep Space Nine documentary? They said we dropped the bomb with dealing with issues of homosexuality. They screwed that up big time.
Well,
they could have done
they
way
addressed
better.
it, but they just didn't do it
on such a minor level. Minor level. They could have addressed it far greater.
But Adira, the host Adira, is really is the one that's non-binary. All the other previous hosts, they were either male or female.
Mm-hmm.
So Adira, because each host has their own identity, as it's always been stated.
Yes.
So, but I don't think that just because the actor is non-binary that the character really had to be. But they wanted to put that in the show.
I don't understand that either.
Fine,
because you remember when Star Trek Beyond came out, they made an illusion that Sulu was homosexual in the movie, and George Takei said, "Nah, Sulu's not gay. That's not the character. I'm an actor. I want to play something different. I don't want to just be myself."
That's exactly right. Yeah, the actor should want to be able to play different characters that aren't like themselves, and
exactly.
So it's kind of.
So I think that in itself, I really, I mean, it's not what people do in their personal lives. It doesn't. I don't care. I really don't care what people do in their personal lives. So I don't quite understand the big hubbub about it. Whatever. It's not a focal point for me. You know what I'm saying? I care about the story.
And it was, mentioned one time, and it was kind of, I mean, they didn't really need to make a whole episode about it or anything, so that
parts
was
of it
cool.
were preachy. It totally was.
It does seem like it. That's one of the complaints about this season. And having Adira be adopted by Stamets and Culber, which is okay, but I think that also seemed forced.
Mm-hmm.
Because we, as the viewers, didn't get to see enough of them together for this kind of relationship to develop. I mean, yes, they became friends, but this was just over a few episodes. They really shouldn't have had, I think they shouldn't have mentioned the family thing until next season when they've had more time
100%
together.
agree. I think they should have gotten to the point with the burn early on, and then let us have the enjoyment of a natural development of this unit, not just zip zip. Okay, here you are. We're a family now.
Yeah, it did seem like it came on too fast and wasn't natural. But and seeing Gray, another thing was how they could talk to Gray, the boyfriend that died, Gray Tall,
and that's, look.
At first it's
so confusing to me that was a boyfriend because it looked like a girl.
Well, getting into more gender confusion.
Yeah, I didn't get it, but whatever.
But I believe they did say the Gray is a male. It is a boyfriend. But the thing is, so the fact that she could see him and no one else could see him and talk to him, that's understandable because she's carrying
I liked
that
all
symbiote.
that. Yeah, totally.
But then it got confusing when they went to the ship, the Kelpian ship.
Yes.
When Gray was there and then suddenly appeared as a hologram.
Yes.
But so and then everyone could see him, which meant, so what happened? So the holodeck could sense a being there and created a persona for that being. I don't get how that could have happened.
I think they just desperately want this actor to be in the show more than that is necessary for the story, and so they're developing ways to bring the actor into scenes.
But in that, they also made him part of the story. Because he was that hologram, he was the only one that could leave the holodeck. Of course, that doesn't even sound right, does it? But he did. He wasn't affected by the radiation. That's why it was important for him. So that's how they wove it into the story. That's how they made it where they needed him to be that way for the story. But it still didn't make scientific sense.
There's too many characters now, too.
Yeah.
They're just piling and piling and piling characters on to the point where, I don't even know enough about Detmer. I don't know enough about you're just piling more characters on. But still, the focal point is always Michael Burnham on every episode.
I mean, you have to admit that they had the other things. They had Georgiou. They had her story arc. A few other characters, but
I don't think she should be in this season. I would rather have her take a break for a while, give me a break from Georgiou, and then have her come back with vengeance in her own series.
But the way they did the send-off for her, I thought it was good, going back to the Mirror Universe, having the Guardian of Forever. I loved seeing that.
All right.
So they did give her a good send-off. But then another thing that didn't
fit.
I
thought actually it was more like a TARDIS at first.
It was like the TARDIS. The doorway, it was just the single door there.
It was very much like a Doctor Who kind of thing. But, it made sense. Guardian of Forever. But the send-off when she died made no sense. I mean, 0 sense whatsoever.
Are you talking about the scene where they talked about it?
Yes.
That's what I was getting to. Yeah, the crew is standing around sort of toasting her, a remembrance. And, why? Because she was evil. And how well did they even know her? And, as some people have said on social media, Georgiou should have really been thrown in the brig for the whole time. She shouldn't have been allowed to roam free anyway.
Listen, there's been some nuisances at my job. When they got fired, there's nobody had said, boy, let's talk about the good times. You're like, good riddance. Glad got her out of here. I was like, why is everybody reminiscing about this woman who, in many ways, made their lives miserable?
Yeah, even though she grew some, which is what the episodes talked about.
Which I liked that a lot. She had some changes once she's back into the Mirror Universe, but still, this show just does not make sense.
But I do look forward to seeing her in her new show, if they ever make it.
It's the number 1 Star Trek show that I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to that more than I'm looking forward to the Pike series.
Okay.
Pike series, I think they're going to screw it up. I'm excited about it. I think they're going to screw it up a little bit. But I think Section 31, if they follow the pattern of Star Wars and make it like a more gritty show, I think they're going to do a great job.
They could. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. What do you think about Tilly? And I know you wanted to talk about that.
I desperately try not to. She's getting more Jar Jar Binks than ever before.
Whoa.
And it's essentially it's like Han Solo saying, hey, you know what? Step aside, Chewbacca. Let's have Jar Jar fly the Millennium Falcon with me. I'm not buying into this. Everybody thinks that she'd make great first number
officer.
1. Yeah, forget that. It's just silly.
Okay. You remember so in the second episode, when Saru took Tilly on the away mission, and he said, did he see something in her? Because she was wondering why he chose her for the away mission. He said that she makes a good first impression. Now that was good. And I think that was the first scene where they were kind of building up to something happening with her later. But yeah, I do agree though. I don't think she should have been made the first officer. No, it was totally inappropriate.
And everybody agreed to it. That's what made it ridiculous.
Totally. I mean, even everybody could have been best friends with her. Maybe they did like her, but for everyone to agree, oh yeah, I think it's great for you to be the first officer. Yeah, I outrank you. I've been in Starfleet 10 years longer than you, but I'll take orders from you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Guess what? That will never happen on any level anywhere in the Star Trek universe. This whole idea of we're all inclusive and we're all team. No. There's a point where you say, I earned it. I've been here longer. I've done my job. You wait your turn because it's my turn now. And I can't believe no one It doesn't make any sense. It was at that point where I just said, I'm over this show. That was the breaking point for me, was saying, I'm finished with Discovery.
Because remember for the Berman shows, they were talking about how it's hard to write for Star Trek because it's Gene Roddenberry's utopian world, and about how the people in Starfleet have to get along. They can't fight amongst themselves. But now you have Discovery, and it's like, now the writers are they're taking that utopian a little too far about the crew getting along. Like, they're always going to get along no matter what happens to them. We can just throw all this stuff at them and they're still going to get along. But I do think, so the reason, behind the scenes, the reason Tilly was chosen, you have to look at so the other bridge officers, which we think it would have been more logical, Detmer, Owasakan, Reese, and Bryce, and even Lieutenant Nielsen, the blonde woman that was played by the same actress that played Ariam. So the reason they couldn't be first officer, the behind-the-scenes reason, is because those actors are all background actors. I think it's in their contract that they're background. They're paid to be background. Maybe someday they can renegotiate and become, some of the main characters. But for now, they couldn't be given a bigger part because that's what they're paid to do. And the opposite of that, William Shatner on the original series, he was paid the big bucks to be the star of the show. It was in his contract. Mm-hmm. So here you have, these other actors. So I'm saying that's the reason that no one else in the bridge crew could have become first officer.
Poor planning on their part. They should have never made her to be the second tier.
And it's the way the show was structured from the beginning. It was supposed to be about the lower decks, basically, except for the captain or the first officer. But you know how Tilly was a cadet when she was first on the show? Michael Burnham was a first officer, but she got bumped down to being just a recruit because she was, she had been in prison for treason. So it was her, we didn't see a chief engineer. We had Stamets, but he wasn't the chief engineer. So there was that's the reason they had to make Tilly the first officer now, because there was no one else who could do it, because Burnham had just been demoted. There were no other candidates for first officer that we saw on screen, because the bridge crew, as I said, couldn't, because they're background characters.
Well, they got to change things around then.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see Lieutenant Bryce. It would make sense. I mean, everyone else that you named would make more sense than Tilly. No possible way in any job, military, civilian, what have you, would you have someone that's that low, that's that new, that's that green, jump ahead of everyone else without a riot going on.
Exactly. So, and I guess they couldn't add a new character. I mean,
there's too many characters as it is.
Well, the thing is, remember Nan, and she had just been written out of the show, but she could have done it.
Yep.
And there was, there was a woman named Willa.
Yeah, she's a commander, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that would have been perfect.
And Willa, that worked for Admiral Vance, and she was on Discovery for an episode or two. I mean, she could have done it, but I think they didn't want to add her as a regular, so they just didn't want to add another character. Anyway, also I wanted to mention Vance. Now I did like Admiral Vance. He was a recurring character. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop with him. I thought he was going to turn out to be a Badmiral, but he never did.
I'm glad. I'm kind of over the Badmirals that they kept doing in Next Generation.
Yeah, so he actually turned out to be a good guy. And maybe we'll see more of him. Now with Book, the addition of Book, he was a good character, but I think he wasn't that well developed, because he's supposed to be one of the main characters now.
Which I don't understand. You want to talk about somebody I don't care about? Again, I don't care about him.
Well, like I said, he wasn't developed enough. They used him, but it still seemed like...
Again, you're forcing a character on me that I don't care.
I mean, yeah, so what's he doing on Discovery? See, this is the thing. Adira, I thought, made a good contribution to being on Discovery.
Yes.
Book, I mean, not really as much. It seems like he was just there because he was in love with Burnham. And they did make him, be able to use the spore drive. So now Stamets is not the only one who can do it.
It's ridiculous.
And
the spore drive is already ridiculous.
And, so Adira changing the
and
way
I'm
you
glad
act.
we have Dr. Noor. He came on our show one time to talk about the ridiculousness of it.
Okay.
It's just, it's mushrooms running everything. I just wish they'd ease up with the ridiculousness. And having him now.
Having him, who, you mean Book?
Yes.
Yeah, having Book use the spore drive. Well, that was okay. I just thought they didn't explain it right. They said because he's an empath, but I think it's because being an empath, he can communicate with they said there are beings that inhabit the mycelial network.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's because he is an empath and communicate with them that he can do it. They didn't say that. They just said it's because he's an empath that communicates with animals. So we'll see how that goes. I was kind of hoping like maybe Book and Burnham would just go off together. They could have their own adventures while Saru was in charge of Discovery, and Discovery can still meet up with Book and Burnham sometimes. Mm-hmm. But they didn't do it that way.
And in the Disco universe, I still believe this is a separate universe, but they make references to the Prime universe. Voyager J.
Yeah, they did have the Voyager, which was pretty cool.
USS Nog.
They did, yeah. Those were nice little
mm-hmm.
Easter eggs, and I thought it was awesome seeing those. And so it was just crazy that they put those in, and that was a great idea. The other guy, Aurelio, played by Kenneth Mitchell, the guy in the wheelchair.
I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
I love that they included him.
And did we know? We did not know when we were watching it that it was him.
No, I didn't know. But I thought that was wonderful. We've seen him on panels before. He was at DragonCon, right? Yeah,
yes, he was.
Yeah. That was the first time we saw him at DragonCon when he was healthy. Then he was on a virtual panel, and it was at DragonCon virtual. And you're just like, wow, this guy's health deteriorated so much. Felt so bad for him.
Having ALS.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. And so to include him in this part and to play something where he doesn't have the prosthetics on him, I think that was one of the highlight moments of the series for me, of this season.
Yes, definitely.
I've been saying that forever, that one of my favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine was the episode with Melora.
Yes, the woman in the wheelchair.
Yeah, working into people with disabilities and showing them that they're handy capable. I think it's incredible when Star Trek does that.
It's one of the things Star Trek is about, inclusion mm-hmm. and showing yes. that everybody has something to contribute.
Yes, and to
even
have
though they
him
might
as
be...
an actor and give him
yes.
the dignity and to create that special chair for him. Awesome.
Yes, and I think they have said that he's going to be back. They set it up where it looks like it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, speaking of Aurelio, then we have to talk about Osira, the head of the Emerald Chain.
You could talk about her. Horrible. She
was very much a typecast villain.
Terrible.
Not much of her own character.
I was like, all the Orions in this series, they keep saying, why does it look like their faces are CGI'd? Why does it look like their faces are like Max Headroom? And then you watch the after tracks, and instead of painting their faces green, they put a prosthetic over her face to make it look weird.
Well, they put the prosthetic and then painted that green, right?
It looks weird, though. It just looks so strange.
It does look strange.
It looks very unnatural.
She can't have as many
facial expressions
with that.
It looks like she's forcing to hold her mouth so that the prosthetics don't move.
Yeah, and I think it makes it look like she's not as good an actress.
It's a shame.
But other actors on Star Trek have been able to act through the prosthetics.
But they don't have it around their mouths. That's the big difference.
Okay.
You know
yes.
what I mean?
Yeah.
This is essentially like Planet of the Apes, what they put on her, all around her mouth.
It does make it hard for her. But we did hear that the reason for the prosthetics was that the makeup, a long time ago, the makeup actually did cause problems with their skin years later. So they're trying to do something else now. So they're trying to not put the makeup on their skin.
Clown white makeup.
Which is
Gene Simmons uses it all the time.
I mean, but it's white, it's not green.
No matter what color it is. I mean, Lou Ferrigno,
Yes.
I don't want to hear it. In this day and age, you can't find a makeup that doesn't bother your skin. I don't want to hear it. Let me ask you, when you were whole body painted for that Star Trek fan production, when you were painted green, did it bother your skin?
Not at all, no.
Okay. So, again, that's speculation. No one has ever said for this series why they're doing this weird stuff with the prosthetics. Guaranteed, it's this art department that feels the need to change everything constantly. Constantly changing the way Klingons look, constantly changing the way the antennas and the bone structure on Andorians is. Can't leave anything alone. It's extremely annoying.
And they never mention anything about the pheromones that the Orion women have.
Oh, yeah, great point. Which, we love those episodes of Enterprise.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, maybe they will address this later on in Discovery. I mean, maybe they've done something to tone it down.
Guaranteed, because Kirsten Beyer, in my opinion, is the only one in the writer's room that knows what's going on. She probably steps up and says, hey, what about the pheromones? And they're saying, no, that's not part of our vision. And she's like, but that's been established. We're making our own canon now. Don't worry about old Trek. This is Disco Trek. This is new Trek.
And it's terrible that they would change it, and if they do explain it, I mean, why change something that you're going to have to explain later anyway?
This has been going on for decades of what makes Orion's unique, and they're just throwing it all away. Yeah, I really hate the show at this point forward. The whole Emerald Chain thing, I'm not buying it.
I was okay with it, but I just think the way they worked it out, it wasn't as good. It didn't really seem like it was that much of a threat from the way it was presented to us. Now I do like her. So when she was talking to Vance and offering an alliance, and then Vance said, well, you have to turn yourself in as a criminal and stand trial. I like that part. I like the way that he handled that. I mean, because
I like him as a character.
Yeah.
I actually do. I really do.
He seemed very wise, yes. And
don't like the uniforms. I think the gray is ugly. It's bland.
I like Vance's uniform. His version of it is good, I think, without the color stripe on one side. Mm-hmm. But the ones that they're wearing, the Discovery crew, I mean, those don't look as good. I think the actors don't even look as good in those uniforms.
They showed it behind the scenes that they don't have seams, that they're 3D printed. It's so bizarre.
But it's technology, and they're trying to make them making it look like the uniform is even made in a more advanced way.
But I think there's always people want to be comfortable.
And do you not think the actors are comfortable?
No, I'm saying with these 3D printed uniforms. No, I don't think they are.
Okay, yeah, probably not. Now Tilly talking to Osira. I like that part too. The banter when Tilly was in command and just doing the talking with the video screens or the holograms and just doing their back and forth banter, their insults. That was pretty cool. So, all right. So in that way, Tilly was good there just because she talks a lot anyway, and she was just talking. And,
I mentally shut down. Her in the captain's chair. I just mentally totally shut down. And the refit of the ship, has the A on it now. The nacelles that are not connected, I'm not buying that.
Oh, and what about the whole scene that took place inside the turbo shaft? And you could watch that one little turbo lift going, shoom, just flying.
Here we go. Yeah, the TARDIS? Again, another Doctor Who reference. Is this thing bigger on the inside?
It wasn't really a reference, but it just made you think of being bigger on the inside.
I hate those turbo shaft scenes. It makes no sense. I'm not 6 years old. If I was 6, I would love it. As an adult, I'm like, this is stupid.
And Christopher L. Bennett had a good explanation. Christopher L. Bennett, of course, is one of the Star Trek novelists. But what he said about this show is that the people who do the visual effects have no common sense. Oh, that was so funny.
Right. He's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had me running this show, I would fire the people in the writer's room and get Christopher L. Bennett and Dayton Ward. I mean, all these fantastic writers that are currently writing Star Trek that know Trek. And
people who are fans.
Absolutely, yes. Because they know what's going on. They don't have a soap opera background. They have a science fiction and Star Trek background, so they understand. Okay, we're taking just as long to get to this point as the show has gotten to this point. What do you think about the burn?
In some ways it does seem silly, but I liked it as an idea for them to the mystery for them to figure out what caused the burn. It was okay. Yeah, I guess it wasn't great, but the idea that it caused, such a shattering of everything, a dystopia in this timeline that Discovery found themselves in. Maybe they could have come up with something better than all the dilithium exploding, but the way it was used as a story, it was okay. What did you think?
Horrible.
Okay, yeah.
Kid throws a tantrum.
Oh, well, now the explanation for it. Now, do you want to talk about that? Yeah,
I don't want to.
That was, okay.
I don't want to. I don't want to talk about any of this. But guess what? We have to, because we watch every Trek, and we have to talk about every Trek. This is the type of thing that I want erased out of Trek history. This is the type of thing that I'm hoping they come up with some explanation that this is a totally ridiculous alternate timeline that no one will ever revisit again in the Star Trek universe. Because this is totally absurd.
And I still have the hope that next season will be better. But yeah.
It has to be better. It has to be better. It's somebody's defecating all over you, and you're like, boy, that was a bad day. Well, it has to be better, because what's worse than that? This show has reached a new low with the explanation for the burn.
Yeah. Even though like having Su'Kal was a good character, and the way that Saru interacted with him, there were still some good parts. I thought it was a really good episode, that first one, Su'Kal, where they introduced him and everything. It was a good episode. Yeah, but the explanation for the burn, and even saying that he was, while he was still in utero, that somehow there was the radiation and something caused him to sort of like, I don't know, be in sync or be one with the dilithium, so that what happened to him caused all the dilithium in the galaxy to explode. It was a little far-fetched.
And then the whole thing of when they beam down to the planet, they become different aliens.
Well, that was because they were in the holodeck. It was the holodeck, though.
And it was
weird too. Yes.
What's the point? I'm just saying, like, what is the point to all this? At the end, I was like, okay, we're going to be revealed what this does. And you're like, okay. And then they're adding the aliens that no one cares about, like the one that eats ice cream with Tilly that looks like they just scribbled magic markers on her face.
Yeah, Zahayan, yes.
Terrible.
So they had to use a race that was created for Discovery, which is okay. But yeah, it was strange that everybody had to be a different race, and they couldn't just be themselves.
But what I did like, though, I'd like to see Doug Jones.
Yes, so we got to see him as a human.
As stupid as that was, it was great to see Doug Jones just be Doug Jones.
Yes, it was
We've
great
seen him at
him.
Con before, met him before, and he's so kind, so gentle, and I think that aspect, he's able to use his facial features and expressions more, obviously, as a human than he could as Saru. So I know that he, as an actor, just needed some relief, and he got it during that episode. And we as fans were like, wow, this is great to see him like that.
I thought it was amazing to see him, yes. And he still did a fabulous acting job. And another episode I liked, even though I didn't like something about it, but Unification 3, I liked that the Vulcans and Romulans did unify.
Yes, totally.
I was always a fan of the Vulcans and Romulans, and I loved Spock. So I was glad that what Spock had set out to do actually happened, even if it didn't happen in his time. Right,
total agreement there. But what didn't we like about it?
The real problem is something that other fans have talked about too. When they, right at the end, when Gabrielle Burnham is talking to Michael and she was saying about the minister T'Rina, and how T'Rina said that she wonders how much of what Spock became was because of who his sister was.
Exactly.
Can you believe that? They just took away everything from Spock.
Exactly. There's some things you could play around with in Star Trek universe. You do not mess with Spock. You do not mess with the legacy of the original series Spock. I don't care about the Quinto Spock, that one, the 09 Spock. We're talking about don't mess with what Leonard Nimoy built.
Right. Even though they had Ethan Peck in season 2 as Spock.
I don't care about him. It's like, it's good. Okay, whatever. Like, I'm indifferent. You do not mess with the original Spock.
Exactly. So yeah, that that just messed the whole thing up. But it was a good episode until that.
And again, the whole thing, it's all about Mikey. Mikey's Ninja Warrior mother. I thought that was ridiculous too.
Well, I was okay with that. I mean, so Burnham had been looking for her mother. She found her. Well, by accident, really, in this episode. So her mother has joined the Kuat Malat. A reference to Picard. That was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, I was fine with that. So now we know where her mother is and that she's safe and she's happy where she is. So that's okay.
You were good with that.
Yeah.
Right? We were both in agreement of stop it with putting this idea that Mikey is the center of the Star Trek universe, because that's what they're saying now. Not this, she's the center of the show, but everything is because of Mikey Spock. Crybaby Mikey. It's just...
Okay, and so now we might as well just mention the end.
Here it is.
Where
it's all about her.
Becomes the captain.
You knew it was inevitable.
Yeah, the show was building up to it.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, but this season, so she was already first officer. I mean, Saru made her first officer this season, and then had to demote her because of insubordination, going and doing something, going off of a planet, disobeying orders.
Of course, that's really someone you want to be a captain.
Yeah, so making her captain now was a little too soon after that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that also seemed forced. They forced a lot of things on you this season, like trying to force you to accept stuff that's
too much. Yeah, it's just that. Yeah,
I mean,
whatever.
You knew the show was always building up to it because we always knew that Burnham was the star of the show.
Oh, you knew that they weren't going to let that die. That they were going to make her captain. Sure.
Now,
you knew that.
And what so what about Saru? So they said he's going back to Kaminar to help Su'Kal. But they did say that he's coming back to Starfleet, but we don't know in what capacity. Does he get to be captain of another ship or what? Or maybe an ambassador or something, but
I just think if they lose him, it'd just be so sad.
Well, I think Doug Jones did say he's coming back.
He is coming back, but I hope that he comes back to straighten things out.
Now with Saru, the thing is, I think they made Saru a weaker captain this season. Now, I mean, I like Saru. I've always liked him, so I didn't really like...
I love him.
The fact that he had to, ask the computer, what to do. Even, I mean, and I know he already did that before on Discovery, but having him do it now when he should have more confidence, that didn't seem right.
Mm-hmm.
And then Admiral Vance had to give him the advice, don't, I forgot exactly the words, but it was like, don't disregard any member of your crew. You have to take care of your crew is basically what Vance was saying. And it was good advice, but I just didn't like that Saru needed to hear it. I think Saru should have known that on his own.
Sure.
So it kind of weakens him as a captain.
It seems like this season is pushing it more than any other season ever before, that all the women are just super strong, super powerful. They could do anything. Nothing could stop them. And the men are all disposable. They're kind of weak. They're indecisive.
Yeah, it's becoming a women's show after having Lorca and then Pike, and now who have we got this season? Saru was the captain this season, but like I said, he didn't do as well as a captain. So yeah, it's kind of it's different, and it's taking a different turn.
And I'm a guy. I naturally like guy things. I mean, there's exceptions to the rules. I love Wonder Woman.
You love Janeway as a captain.
Oh my God! Well, except for Tuvix.
Okay.
Oh boy, she was horrible with Tuvix. That was terrible what she did. Oh, there were some Voyager episodes. Well, like I said before, I like Voyager better because of the books. The books are so good. But and reading them in tandem with the show and the after Voyager books especially. But this
Star
is a weird show.
Has had some good female captains. I mean, we've seen
admirals.
Some.
Sure, of course.
Yes. So as far as Burnham making captain, though, it's it's just that looking at the character, you still think that it's a little soon.
Let's fly. What's this thing now?
Having the way that they have to say it.
And this Discoverse is obsessed with having a tagline for everyone.
Well, Lower Decks. Well, the whole CBS universe, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, exactly. Because previously in the original series, in the Cage, Captain Pike said engage, and now, because Picard said it, in Next Generation, I guess the CBS universe feels, well, we don't want to have two captains say engage, so let's make up something for him. And then, wait, we're making something for him, let's make something for her. And it's like, it's just not how it works.
Well, yeah.
Every captain doesn't have a tagline.
I thought, there really should be, when they go to their command training, there should be a way to say it that they're told to say.
Which I assumed was engage.
Probably,
because
yes.
Captain Pike said it in the original series. Captain Jean-Luc Picard said it. It almost seems like this Discoverse is obsessed with making sure that everyone who sits in the captain's chair has a tagline. Well, I don't get it, because there's going to be a point where you run out of ideas. Let's fly. If I was at console, I'd just turn around and say, okay.
Because in space,
aren't we already
it's
flying?
not technically flying. But
exactly. That's another point too, Drew.
Well, that has just become a fun thing that they do, but you don't really think it's fun. Okay.
No fun whatsoever. So overall this season, you weren't as impressed?
No, even though some things I liked, but no, I just, somehow I don't think it held together as well as the first two seasons. Even though people have talked about how behind the scenes, they kept changing, the showrunners during the first and second seasons. This is the only time that they've really kept a lot of the stability behind the scenes.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you have idiots that are stable.
Okay.
Think about it. You have the patients running the asylum. You have showrunners that don't know Star Trek.
And they picked up, some references. And about Ni'Var, Vulcan and Romulan combining, and they call the planet Ni'Var now. Mm-hmm. And Ni'Var was actually from, well, you know what? For the show, they probably got it because it was a ship on Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is something that was from a fanzine in 1966. It was actually something that meant something about combining two things. It was a Vulcan word. Mm-hmm. So it is cool that they threw that in. But I think that they really just got it from a ship name from Enterprise. And all of these Easter eggs that they throw in, it doesn't really mean that they know their Star Trek history. It's more like they're just picking little things, like they just arbitrarily pick something from the past and just throw it in.
If I go to a Mexican restaurant, I can make some Spanish references. It doesn't mean I know Spanish.
Exactly.
That's exactly what they're doing. They're going on some message board saying, hey, what's this obscure thing called? Okay, let's throw this in to show the fans that we really care. They don't know what's going on. If I were to challenge those clowns, with the exception of Kirsten Beyer, all those other clowns, our production team or the writing team, to a trivia challenge, I would crush them. I don't even know them, and I know I would. Especially, what's her, Michelle Paradise? Is that her name?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Guaranteed. Her and Kurtzman can combine together. 2 versus me. I would crush them. I really don't think they know Star Trek. They desperately want to change everything and just slap a Star Trek label on it.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Exactly. They don't know really enough about it. They're doing their own thing. They don't really care as much about honoring what has come before in continuity. But even when we were watching, because I know the first time I watched Voyager and Enterprise, I thought they were kind of mediocre. But you know how we just did a rewatch of Voyager and Enterprise, and we liked them a lot better in the rewatch.
Oh, much better.
So maybe, just maybe in 20 years we'll rewatch Discovery, and maybe we'll go, hey, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. Thanks for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our Facebook group. Live long, and may the Force be with you. Nanu Nanu.